I want to start this video off by saying that I'm a pretty big fan of David Bowie. I've listened to a ton of his albums and I love, well, most of them, but I've always been more of a video game guy than a music guy. So when I found out that David Bowie was actually involved in the making of a video game, I was obviously pretty interested. And the fact that I found out about that game on the fucking day that he died should have been an omen to stay the hell away from it. Omikron the Nomad Soul is one of the worst games I've ever played. Possibly one of the worst pieces of media I've ever experienced, in fact. There's less functional games out there, sure, but Omikron fascinates me in a way nothing else I've ever played ever has. In fact, the reason I've been trying to make this video since 2020 is because trying to put my thoughts on this game together in a coherent, non-schizophrenic format seemed like an impossible task. But I did it, and I may have lost a few IQ points in the process, as stupidity is the name of the game here.
A game? Do I look like a game?
Omikron is the first game developed by everybody's favorite Frenchie, David Cage, who nowadays is best known for running out of a courtroom in tears after having horrible statements that he actually said read back to him. Unlike the later QTE-heavy adventure games that his studio Quantic Dream would put out, Omikron is sort of a cross-genre thing, primarily being a dialogue-heavy adventure, but occasionally switching to FPS and fighting game sections. The game's story revolves around the Nomad Soul, who may be a player self-insert, may be an actual character, I'll get into it later, but what's important is that they're a fucking gamer bro transported to another world, using the power of jacking other people's bodies in order to free the cyberpunk city of Omikron from the control of demons. Our introduction to Omikron is this goober named Kale jumping out at the screen and telling you that you need to save his world by controlling his body with your computer. A world which he assures you is totally 100% a real world and not just a collection of textured polygons.
Press any key to say yes, but hurry, there isn't much time.
Anyway, after transferring your soul into Kale's body, a demon jumps you in an alley and tries to suck it out. And then Ed209 shows up for some scathing and nuanced commentary on the ineffectiveness of the police.
You have been the victim of a violent attack. Go home, eat, and rehydrate yourself. If you experience mental disturbances, consult a psychiatrist. The Omikron Police thank you for your cooperation.
Madam, you have suffered an emotional shock. I will notify a rape crisis center.
Classic. Omikron isn't really about anything though, so you won't be seeing a lot of this particular brand of satire. What you will be seeing though, is a lot of brown buildings. Now, to give credit where credit is due, Omikron's open world is very impressive on a technical level. It's a pretty well realized and interactive city, especially considering it predates GTA 3 by about 2 years. There's tons of buildings and apartments you can actually enter and use shit inside, and you have a car that can be manually or automatically driven to get around with. Objects in the world are also fully interactive. You can open up cabinets and drawers, items all have animations for when you pick them up. You can even take a piss in toilets, which is always a nice touch.
Time to stop pissing around and get this big guy back into action.
They really put a lot of effort into trying to make the player get immersed in this world. And then you fucking talk to somebody.
Oh, Kale, I thought I'd never see you again. Where have you been? I haven't heard from you in days.
I'm not Kale. I'm occupying his body, but I'm from another dimension.
Kale, are you sure you feel alright? Do you want me to call a Meditech?
Yeah, don't be too concerned about Kale telling you that you're entering a real world with real consequences. You can get away with a lot of shit here. I mean, for one, you have Resident Evil style save tokens, so you totally can just reload your save if you fuck something up. I don't know why he says you can't, but doing something stupid won't normally get you into any real trouble anyway. As we just saw, you can tell Kale's girlfriend Telos that you're actually a body snatcher from another dimension. She'll just brush it off and fuck you, which, you know, that's pretty fucked up, Cage, you wacky psychopath. You can say the same thing to Kale's fascist cop boss, who even suspects you of murdering Kale's partner Dan, and she'll still tell you to stop screwing around and go interrogate this suspect named Jenna. Sometimes your actions might net you a bonus item, like Jenna will give you something later on if you let her go free here, but I think these are all mostly reserved for all the side quests I didn't bother with because I didn't want to play Omikron any longer than I had to. I will admit that the aggressive lack of giving a fuck about Kale's job makes this first section of the game a bit of fun. I mean, at one point you just drug your boss with sleeping pills so you can go rummage around through her shit. What the fuck? You're not even putting this in the fridge? Oh god, it smells! What the fuck? How long has this been in here for? It's almost like a cool neo-noir adventure, with you having to retrace Kale's steps to uncover the mystery behind his death. It's pretty solid in terms of adventure gameplay, even if the stupid weaves its way into most of the character writing. So, it's a shame then that you have to break from that to go shoot shit. You know, if Omikron was just a shitty adventure game with some bad writing, I think it would have been a much less deplorable experience than the final product ended up being. As stated earlier, Omikron will occasionally become an FPS for a fighting game. The shooter sections are just the worst. They're everything you don't want in a shooter. They've got sluggish movement, unresponsive guns that can either get stuck firing or not firing, confusing level design, AI that goes apeshit, all of which is made worse by the frame rate being capped at 30. Your default gun is the Waver. It's a shitty little pea shooter with infinite ammo. Normally this is the kind of gun you'd get rid of as soon as possible, but I find that I tend to stick with this one since you typically have to buy other weapons and ammo, and money isn't really easy to come by in Omikron. I managed to get my hands on stuff like the Decagon that fires in bursts, and the Double Waver, which isn't a guns akimbo thing for whatever reason, and I think there's a rocket launcher or two in the game, but it's hard to get ammo for any of these, and I never got the impression that they were any more useful than the default Waver. I mean, you can take down the big Ed 209 fuckers with it pretty easily, so, like, I don't know, what the hell do I need a rocket launcher for? The other important gun in the game is the Power Rod, which is effectively just another Waver, but it's the only weapon that can hurt demons, which will, unfortunately, become important later on. This one's a little different from the rest because you have to find a demon scale at the morgue and give it to this snake-looking dude at a sorcery shop to create it, only for you to use it twice in the main story because it doesn't work on human enemies. The fighting sections I have a bit less to say about. It seems like they're modeled after Tekken 3's systems. You've got 2 punches, 2 kicks, style combos, and 3D movement. But I mean, like, god, it just feels fucking terrible to play. The animations are choppy and weightless, and the controls feel just as unresponsive as the shooting controls. I mean, it's not nearly as bad as, like, Dragon Ball Final Bout, sure, but that's not exactly a high bar of quality. I don't even really bother trying with the fighting sections. You don't have a move list to check. I mean, there's a few combos lying around on optional notes later in the game, but I find that the best strategy in all encounters is just to keep spamming one punch until the fucker decides not to block anymore, and keep doing that until they're dead. I think the big issue here is a lack of focus on making the combat actually fun to play. I get the impression they just threw the shooting and fighting in here for the sake of making a multi-genre game, because there's only like 7 fighting segments and 7 shooting levels, so they just kinda come off like little sideshows to the real game more than anything substantial. I think they really should have picked one style of combat and built the game around it, or cut all this shit entirely and just make an adventure game. It seems like Quantic Dream thought the same thing after releasing Omikron, because all their later titles are just straight adventure games. It's just like fucking Eve again. Stop trying to throw in video game shit where it's not needed. During your investigation, you get a call from the lady that is Kale's girlfriend, and uh-oh, she's being attacked by a demon. It's a trap, of course. You run up to her and she transforms into a demon. Whether or not this demon disguised itself as her or if she was a demon the whole time is unknown, because Omikron absolutely doesn't give a fuck about this character, so we punch her out and never speak of her again. However, if you lose here, your body actually dies and your soul flies off to inhabit the first person to touch your corpse, which just so happens to be this random chick on the roof. This is the reincarnation mechanic, Omikron's main hook. It's not really reincarnation, it's possession. I don't know why it's called that, but basically you can take over certain characters' bodies with a spell, granting you access to their various abilities. Their abilities being their stats, a special inventory item, and sometimes an apartment key. Honestly, it's mostly an aesthetic thing. In certain circumstances, dying will let your soul just transfer into the body of the first person to touch you, making you theoretically invincible. I say theoretically because there's multiple areas in the game where you can just die and game over, which I believe a great man once said is a failure of the game designer, but what do I know? I don't want to lose Kale yet though, so I just reloaded my save and beat the demon for real, something Kale told me I couldn't do earlier, but you know what, fuck that guy, I banged his girlfriend. From here, Jenna appears again on the roof, and yes, that's Jenna, the hood isn't fooling anybody, you silly bitch, and she explains the plot to you.
I know you're playing a video game in another dimension far away from here. But what you experience here is no game. It's reality. Our reality. And you risk your life every second. The Omikron video game is a trap created by Astaroth himself. It's bait to attract the player's souls into our dimension.
I don't know. I don't know. What am I supposed to say here? You know, I can't say, well, this game is lying to me because I know none of this is real. Omikron couldn't have been released in stores if it was developed by a demon from another dimension. And I'm a smart man and I listen to Joe Rogan because it's not like this is some kind of a shocking truth. So, what do the developers expect us to think when we hear a line like that? Do they expect us to believe this? Do they expect us to get all uppity because the game has the balls to get meta? I don't know. I don't fucking know. What I do know is that calling attention to the fact that your audience is just staring at a computer monitor is a terrible way to suspend their disbelief. Like, if you have to justify your concept by having a character tell the player that they'll take over for you when you turn off the game, I think you should probably rethink your concept. Wait a second. Jenna says that Astaroth, the big demon controlling the supercomputer that controls the government, had Kale killed and had his body sent to me to trap me in it. But then if the game is a trap to steal the souls of fucking gamers, why did Kale say that he'd take over his body again when I turned off the game? So is this actually the soul of the currently dead Kale? Is this a demon disguising itself as him? Either way, why would he say that? What is happening here? You know what? How about I throw some more confusion onto this pile? Well, okay, see, the real Kale found out that the police chief's actually a demon, so we've got to go kill him and blow up the gate that he's using to trap other players' souls in this dimension. Sure, why not? So, we run up there with our fucking power rod. What? Did I forget to pick up the fucking thing at the shop? Son of a bitch. So, we run up there with our fucking power rod, beat this guy's bionicle looking ass, get the pass for the next district, and move on. However, I'm still in Kale's body, so this happens once I try to get through the gate. What? I neglected to mention this, but our self-insert player character apparently has their own internal monologue with their own goals and desires? Personally, I think it'd be pretty interesting if this was the internal monologue of the possessed person, but this isn't the case because she doesn't want to be a nurse, she already is one. That means this isn't me at all, this is a completely different person that we're playing as here, right? But then everybody's been talking about the Nomad Soul like they're the real-life player controlling these bodies through the actual Omikron video game. Why would you even make this distinction if the protagonist is supposed to be a separate character? And it's such a bizarre problem to create for yourself because it's one that's so easily fixable. Like, you ever play Myst? That's a game where a nameless self-insert protagonist is transported to the island of Myst to go wander around and solve puzzles and shit. There's no information about the player character because you're supposed to imagine that they're you, so you can react to all the crazy puzzle nonsense on the island like you're actually there, even though you know that you aren't. How and why you got your hands on the Myst book that transported you to the island is irrelevant. You can either make up whatever you want or don't even bother thinking about it. The world and the puzzles within are engaging, which keeps you immersed enough that you're not consciously thinking about the fact that all you're actually doing is staring at a computer screen. That's the idea behind the suspension of disbelief, and Myst would have blew it if the game opened up with someone saying, "Whoops, because you've read the Myst book, there's an identical clone of you running around on this real-life island. You have to control them with your computer and solve all these puzzles to destroy them, otherwise they'll die of hunger, and when that happens, you'll die too. So please, take this seriously." Omikron's lack of an engaging story and gameplay that doesn't suck certainly doesn't help with that either. Just off the top of my head, a few ways you could recontextualize Omikron's gamer soul shit into something less stupid would be, number 1, just write a real protagonist. Have a proper cutscene where Johnny Gamebro here gets his soul sucked out into the computer and just go from there. It'd still be an inherently silly concept, but it wouldn't straddle the fourth wall like what they're doing here. You could also scrap the Omikron the game as a trap aspect entirely and have the Nomad soul be a random, recently dead soul that this guy here sends into the Omikron world to go be the Nomad soul. Kind of like an isekai anime. A true self-insert protagonist without any of the stupid sucked into the game bullshit. That's a solid, borderline artsy-fartsy premise right there. Unfortunately, I think I understand why Omikron handles these aspects the way it does, and it's because of the stupid. After shooting the police chief enough, Jenna finally stops fucking around with the hood and invites us to the hideout of the Awakened, basically just the resistance group. Here we meet a ton of colorful characters like Dakuba, smart man that dumps exposition on you, Namtar, man who tells you what level to play next, Socks, also known as Claptrap from the Borderlands games, Krill, man that doesn't like you.
We're warriors willing to give our lives for the cause. We're not movie stars.
Yeah, not with those line readings, you're not. Dakuba lets us know that the only person that would know how to save our soul from Astaroth is Boz, the virtual being and leader of the Awakened. However, it takes a lot of energy for him to speak with anyone, and something binary ties or whatever were not important enough to talk to Boz, so Dakuba tells us to go join the resistance while we wait around for the plot to progress. By the way, Dakuba, with how often I jump around bodies, how will you recognize me?
Don't worry about that. All the Awakened can read souls.
Our first mission is to go blow up a bridge. Krill is apparently the explosives guy, so I don't know why he's not getting involved in this, but he gives you the detonators for the bombs you need because I guess he's content to just sit on the couch and do fuck all else. All the missions from here on out are going to be shooting stages. This one is kind of interesting because you can snag this guy's body at the start so that enemies won't shoot at you until you pull this lever, giving it a bit of an open design. They apparently forgot to account for this in some spots because this enemy will jump out to ambush you only to stop dead in its tracks because it's not supposed to attack you. Apparently I picked up a Mega Zuka at some point, so I decided to try it out, but I guess this rocket launcher can't seem to hit for shit, so it's back to the waiver for now. Yeah, I don't have anything more to say about this. Moving on. For the next mission I did something I wouldn't normally do, and I actually bought some weapons. You know, I'm reviewing this thing, I can't just dismiss everything in it. I've gotta do my due diligence and see what it has to offer every now and then. So I buy a Decagun and a double waiver and a bunch of ammo for them. Cool, fucking A. Now we've got to run all the way to this comically foggy area of Jeanpur, but on the way I run into this cool looking dude that I can reincarnate into, and I go for it because my current body looks like he's shitting his pants at all times. So I reincarnate, decide to open my inventory to use a bunch of health kits, but that's when I notice something. All the ammo I just bought is just straight up gone, it's gone. Yeah, whenever you reincarnate, the game actually strips you of all your ammo and swaps your money with the money of whatever body you just took. Well, that's pretty fucked up. I mean, I just had to hawk a bunch of shit to afford that ammo, you know? Well, whatever. Here's the shooting level. It's fucking terrible. I'd say it's the worst one in the game, but unfortunately, I know what's coming later. The demo movie actually shows off the stage as being some kind of Mirror's Edge shit, but in actuality, it's just a horrible, confusing maze. The demo also shows Kale in this area, which isn't possible in-game, so add that to the count of stuff the demo just blatantly lies about. The first half isn't the worst. Even though the fog is turned up to maximum here, the cutscene at the beginning gives you a pretty good idea of where you're supposed to go. But once you get there and slap some shit on this antenna to transmit a pirate broadcast, the game decides to throw you to the wolves. Almost immediately afterwards, you got enemies shooting at you from beyond the draw distance. Fucking wonderful, thank you game, that's what I like to see. But on top of that, the game gives you no indication of where you're supposed to go from here. There's no cutscene like at the beginning, or even a mini-map, so what the hell am I supposed to do? See that building there? That's the exit to the level. You've got to jump onto that roof to get over the fence, but you sure as hell wouldn't figure that just from looking at it all covered in this thick-ass fog. Is that banner supposed to be telling me that's the spot? Who knows, because I spent the next 15 minutes here running around like a headless chicken until I jumped onto the rooftop by pure happenstance.
I observed the action from a neighboring rooftop. You did very well for a beginner.
Observed? What the fuck do you even do around here, lady? What the fuck do any of you people do around here? This is a bit of a recurring theme with the members of the Awakened. Nobody really seems to do anything or have any semblance of personalities. They just kind of sit around and tell you what level you need to play next. Now, sure, right now we're just starting off in the Awakened's ranks and we need to prove ourselves. However, as the game goes on, these characters start sucking off the Nomad soul and acting like they're the only person that could have possibly completed these objectives when, realistically, anybody else could have pulled this shit off if they weren't being so lazy. I mentioned isekai anime earlier, and that's kind of what Omikron feels like to me. A mediocre isekai anime where an otaku uses their otaku knowledge to steamroll their way through a fantasy world and everyone in the world wants to fillet the hero's giant veiny cock for it. That's right, Nomad Soul, you and your gamer abilities saved the day. It's gamer wish fulfillment.
Yeah, brother! Gamers, rise up!
And to really demonstrate what I'm talking about, I have to talk about the stupid fucking door puzzle. This fucking door right here, man, it pisses me off. Everything about this plot point pisses me off so fucking much. So, Dakuba calls you into his office to teach you about magic. His lesson only goes about as far as saying that in order to cast magic, you need a recipe and a special bowl called a besham. However, the method of making said bowl has been lost to time and there aren't any just lying around in the base, so the best we can hope to do here is just go to Dakuba's library and read up. Here we find a book called Magic Signs of the Art. Listing the numbers 1 to 9 is written in a dead language used by ancient magicians, as well as a few other books related to puzzle shit. It should be noted that in order to get some of these books, you need to get a part to fix this elevator from Claptrap over here by giving him an insulating spray lying on a table right next to him. Only you could have possibly accomplished this, of course. You're also the only one that can possibly get this big door open by reading the ancient numbers on the door and adding them together to get a code. But uh-oh, we don't have the numbers for 10 and 14. Luckily, those numbers are listed on this broken door on the other side of the hideout. Only you could have possibly accomplished this, of course. Now, what's interesting here is that this puzzle is actually based off a similar one from Myst sequel Riven. In Riven, you're given some numerical codes written in weird runes that you can't understand until you stumble upon this little number game in the schoolhouse that teaches you how to read them properly. The game only teaches you 1 to 10, however, so anything higher than that requires intuition and some trial and error to figure it out. Now, Omikron presents these runes as ancient knowledge lost to time that no one has apparently been able to decipher, even though all the information to pull this off is right there in the base. On the other hand, Riven presents its runes as common knowledge for the people living in its world. It's just that you're not from around here and you don't know the language. Omikron also gives you the unknown numbers, while Riven expects you to figure them out on your own. The difference here is that everyone in Omikron is made out to be incredibly stupid and useless to make your accomplishments so much greater than they actually are, while with Riven's approach you actually learn something organically and legitimately accomplish something with your new knowledge. Well, okay, maybe I'm throwing out wild accusations about the intelligence of Omikron's characters here. Dakuba seems to already know that there's a besham stashed away behind the door, so maybe he already figured out how to get in there and he was just saving it in case the Nomad Soul finally showed up. Maybe he just likes being a cryptic dickhead. Sure, okay. So then, why did the ancient magicians that built this temple decide to write the combination for their doors directly onto the fucking things? With that out of the way, there's a particularly annoying shooting level full of enemies that can snipe you before you can even see them again. It's just... oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. You blow up this weapons factory only to get jumped by the pigs and thrown into prison. This gentleman here is Krif Mashrood, the security chief of Omikron who's been mentioned before but we're only just meeting right now. He's trying to grill you for the location of the Awaken's base, so naturally you tell him to fuck off. But it's interesting to note that you can explicitly say, "One day I'll catch up with you and kill you," because you never see this guy again. You'd think this guy would have been more important considering he appears in the intro and all, but it doesn't matter, you and Jenna break out of here within minutes and it's just like that you're back at the base. Jenna suspects that a traitor must have snitched to security about the last bombing, so you have to figure out who it is while Jenna kicks back and does her nails or whatever. Thanks for nothing, lady. Now, why this narking asshole didn't tell security the location of the base? I don't know, it doesn't matter, I don't know. I guess the game expects you to think the traitor is Krill? I'm not entirely sure why. I mean, you know, the guy's kind of a dick to you, but it's not like that makes him a bad guy or anything. There's a journal entry from this dead guy that implies he's the traitor, but you need to unlock his door with a screwdriver to get this, and the only way to get the screwdriver is to have Claptrap unlock Krill's door, and the only reason he does that is because you tell him Krill's the traitor. I don't know, it doesn't matter because the actual traitor is Namtar. In fact, he's not just a traitor, he's a demon in disguise. Once again, I don't know if he was always a demon or if he's a demon that transformed into Namtar, but what I do know is that it's a good thing the Nomad Soul was here to catch him, because it's not like Dakuba told me the Awakened can see souls or anything. So yeah, we punched the demon out just like the rest of them, and this is apparently what leads to Boz finally wanting to see us.
The virtual being has learned of your action and your courage in accomplishing your missions. He wishes to meet you as soon as possible.
Destroying the big fucking demon portal wasn't good enough for David Bowie here. He had to make sure we knew how to blow up a bridge. That's what's really important. That and getting his hands on more sleeping pills, apparently.
The souls here are grey and withered. You can't get much power from them. The juiciest souls are in your dimension. Astaroth created the video game called Omikron in order to capture them. The game you're playing at this very moment.
Yeah, brother, we gotta stop gamer oppression! Boz lets us know that there might be a way to kill Astaroth written on an old parchment in a restricted section of the library. But not only is he not sure, he says it in a way where it's like he wasn't expecting you to ask about that.
Let me think. There might be a way to find out more about Astaroth. There's an old parchment that comes from the Cobalt Wars. It mentions Astaroth. Perhaps it says something about how to destroy the demon.
Why did you bother summoning me here? Obviously I wanted to know how to save my soul. Couldn't you have just passed this information on to Dakuba from the beginning? What was the point of anything I just did here?
I must go. Now the binary tides are turning. May Vigramuka guide your steps.
Wait, why do you look and sound exactly like this musician from my world, and why is there another guy that also looks like him and sounds like him and is even performing his songs? Oh, he's gone. Once we're finally done with all this domestic terrorism, now the game decides it wants to go do Indiana Jones shit. It's a nice, breezy section of the game where you get to search ancient ruins, solve puzzles, hunt for treasure, and you don't even have to fight anyone, so you don't have to deal with Omikron's terrible combat. There's just one problem. This is also the end game. It's basically the third act of the story. This should be the part where our heroes are at their darkest hour, flying by the seat of their pants as they claw their way to victory. Krif Mashrood should be carpet bombing the city trying to get the Awakened, but there's nobody after you, so it lacks tension. Sure, Indiana Jones had to go search around a library looking for clues to find treasure. At the beginning of Last Crusade, by Act 3 he was like jumping around on tanks and shit. If Omikron was just a straight up adventure game without any combat, this wouldn't have been a problem. In fact, I'd say this treasure hunting stuff would have been a nice place to escalate to in that type of game. But this is a game where you've just spent hours punching and shooting at demons and dystopian security officers that have been trying to kill you. With a game like this, we need a little more here. Is what I would have said if I enjoyed this game's combat. Don't think for a second that I'm advocating for any more of that shit. I maintain that they should have focused on one style of gameplay or another. Make shooting or fighting actually fun to play, or just cut them both entirely. But whatever, a part in Omikron lacking tension isn't the worst thing in the world. It's kind of boring to play through, but it's at least tolerable. First, we have to go check out this restricted section of the library containing ancient writings only select citizens are allowed access to. Now, if I was a demon controlling a supercomputer controlling a fascist government, I probably would have had all this shit giving hints on how to kill me burnt, or at least locked away in a more secure building than a public library, but what do I know? The writings there dump a ton of lore on you, stuff that's important enough that maybe we should have learned about it all a little earlier, maybe during that period where we were running around and blowing shit up for no reason. The gist of it is that there's a weapon that can kill Astaroth, the location of which is only written in the Book of Naut, a magical book hidden in an underground graveyard named Homstagen. To get there, we need the 3 jewels of Vigramuka. The first one we already have. It was in the same temple we found the Besham in. Convenient. The second one requires some work. You've got to run around Lahore looking for a hidden code that'll take you to the bottom of a well. It's a cute little scavenger hunt, I've got nothing against it. I do have something against this next puzzle, which drops you into a room with 15 fake jewels and 1 real one, meaning you have to follow these fancy directions to get to the chest with the real jewel inside. And if you fuck up, you won't know until you punch the jewel into the entrance to the underground and it doesn't work. I'll admit that I had some trouble with this one, mostly due to my own stupidity, but in my defense, the game was unclear if I was supposed to start counting from this first chest or before reaching it, which is how the game actually expects you to do it. So, come to your own conclusion on whether or not I'm a fuckwit that doesn't know what I'm talking about. Now, that's a lot of nonsense for 2 jewels. Luckily the third one is much easier to get, because of course it's just lying around on a windowsill in the middle of a public park for anyone to take. There's a bit more to do before you go underground. For one, there's 2 people in this park you can reincarnate into. This will be completely pointless later on, we'll get to that, but in order to get underground, you've got to fuck around to revive this dead guy and he'll open the gate or... whatever, who cares? There's a big puzzle after that where you've got to jump around on catwalks. I've played this game a few times now, and every time I get to this part I just use a walkthrough because I'm too tired to care anymore. With that out of the way, the game drops this on us.
I am Soyinka, the goddess queen, daughter of Matanbakus, the renegade sorcerer. I am the last great master of the ancient art, still living on this planet.
So, there's a supposedly super important character and a whole faction of mutants living in this underground city here. To Omikron's credit, both of these things were actually foreshadowed earlier on in various writings, but it doesn't matter because we're about to fight the final boss in under an hour, and none of these people are even slightly helpful to our cause. The most the Goddess Queen does is give you a big horse thing called a sham that you'll supposedly need to ride into Hamstagen. I will acknowledge that a lot was cut from the game. Supposedly there's files containing a ton of unused conversations that would have fixed some plot holes and such. Shit gets cut, it happens, but I'm not playing the version of the game where the point of all this nonsense wasn't cut, so I'm not going to excuse the game for being unfinished. And this brings us to the most batshit crazy thing Omikron pulls on us.
Odo not think of this. Shams very untrusting. First know you, then let you mount. Catacomb Shams never see human like you. Fodo sorry, but journey to Hamastagan not possible, no mount. Fodo cannot help. Sorry, must be Azkil in order to mount Sham. That be the Klebon to keep Krubors away from Shams. Krubors like eat Shams. The Klebon smell so stink they stay away. That way no problem. Most important, you stay away from the Klebon. Deadly poison. Kill you straight away.
Let's break down what just happened here. The sham wouldn't let us get on because apparently they only trust the mutants. So we drink this toxic mixture to kill the body we're in, also that we can steal the body of this kindly, racially insensitive farmer. So we hop on over to the fucking sham, ride it over to this rock, it pushes the rock out of the way, and then we hop off. Side note, you're required to do this, so I hope you didn't try and grind out stats for your previous body. I don't know if Cage thought this was funny. I don't know if he thought it was a clever use of the body snatching mechanic. I don't know what the hell he was thinking here. I didn't get the impression that Omikron was ever supposed to be a dark comedy, but this seems like it was meant to be comedic, so I don't fucking know. What I do know is that the overall morality of Omikron really needs to be called into question. A fun thing about fiction is that we can kind of accept when horrible things happen to certain characters as long as we don't like or care about them. Maybe that's not something about the human psyche we should be proud of, but it's why we can laugh hysterically when some asshole gets blown to pieces by Ed 209, but we're horrified when the same thing happens to Alex Murphy not even 10 minutes later. Omikron works the same way. All these people whose bodies we're stealing aren't written as characters, which is how we're able to ignore the moral implications of what we're actually doing when we reincarnate into them. Photo is different. In the few minutes we've spoken to Photo, we've gotten to know the guy. He's a kindly farmer. He doesn't want us to go get killed in the dangerous city. He just wants to take care of his shams. He's an innocent person. Ironically, he has more of a personality than anyone else in the game, and we just ruthlessly ejected his soul from his body so we can go push a rock out of the way. That makes me think about everyone else whose bodies we've stolen throughout our adventure. Sure, Kale was already dead, but that nurse wasn't. Neither was that drunk dude in the sewers. They were all people with hopes and dreams too, I imagine, and we just stole their bodies without giving a single fuck. Also, I said that we ruthlessly ejected Photo's soul from his body because something I didn't mention about the reincarnation mechanic is that whenever you steal a body, you leave behind a ghostly apparition of your last body. I never really knew what this meant because you can't interact with them until you steal this dude's body in the library because for some reason you can interact with this single ghost, to which the Nomad's soul says, "This is my former body. Soulless, it is but an empty shell, a ghost without substance. I'll miss it." That's horrible! So what we've been doing here isn't just stealing bodies, putting innocent people in potential danger, we've actually been kicking out their souls to go wander around wherever the fuck, I guess. Maybe we're obliterating them from existence, maybe they got sent to Astaroth's Reservoir of Souls. I don't know, but basically we're just straight up killing innocent people. Aren't these the people we're supposed to be protecting? Aren't we supposed to be saving these people from Astaroth? No! In fact, the Nomad Soul's goal has always been saving their own soul from the very beginning, and that's never changed. I was honestly expecting the game to tell me to my face that I'm a monster for not considering my actions, but no, Omikron just straight up doesn't give a fuck. Honestly, Omikron feels like it's written from the perspective of a narcissistic psychopath. Someone that can't make emotional connections with others, doesn't care if they use people to their own ends, and is just writing based on what they've seen in movies and other video games. And you know what? Maybe that's the point. Maybe Omikron is meant to be a commentary on the inherent psychopathic nature of video game storytelling. I mean, us gamers will just shoot at anything we're told is a bad guy without a second thought, right? Us gamers will just run over NPCs in the street because we don't give a shit and just want to have fun, right? Even supporting characters us gamers are supposed to like and connect with are usually just written as one-dimensional assholes that tell us what to do, right? Ugh, rest in peace, gamer brothers! Yeah, no. I think this kind of commentary would require some level of subtlety, or at the very least, actually funny satire, both of which Omikron has failed to demonstrate, and I don't want to psychoanalyze the person I've never met, so I'm gonna chalk this all up to the stupid for now. But hey, food for thought. I'm gonna skip over the lead up to the final boss because it's all completely useless. No, we need to talk about our big, fat, fucking bad guy, Astaroth. First off, what is this design supposed to be? He looks like Giga Bowser with mime face paint. Is this supposed to be our embodiment of evil itself? He looks like a fucking chump. Like I said earlier, I was expecting this game to pull a Spec Ops on me around this point, or do something meta with this guy. But we don't get anything like that with Astaroth. He tells us that he's just an asshole that gets off on people suffering, and he's gonna take over our world. I don't know, maybe I expected too much from Omikron, but this just feels so shockingly anticlimactic to me. He's just a demon, and he's just evil, and that's the extent of his character. Wow, it's just like one of my video games. I'm gonna beat you to death with my gamer ability. Oh. This boss isn't fun. Astaroth only takes damage from the power rod because of course he does. I hope you weren't stockpiling Megazooka ammo or anything. I mean, you would've just lost it the second you sent poor Photo's soul to the Shadow Realm anyway. So what you gotta do here to actually hurt him is hit this tiny little spot on his back. It's bigger than it looks, but not nearly as big as it should be, but before that, you've gotta blow up these blue boxes tethering him to the wall, which is boring and pointless, and you've gotta do it every time you die, and you're gonna die a lot because this boss is fucking impossible. Big fucko here turns around really fast, and if you get too close to him, he'll jump 50 feet in the air and stomp your ass. And just for the extra fuck you value, he moves faster the more damage he takes. So, this battle is a war of attrition. You have to quickly deal a shit ton of damage to him while taking as little damage yourself as possible, then tank the rest of his attacks while you try and whittle him down to zero. The only way that I can see this is even possible is by shooting him to stun him, running around back, then dumping ass on his weak spot by gently circle strafing when he turns around to sunlock him. And he gets too fast to keep this up, so once he breaks free, you just have to hope you have enough health to wing it from there. Honestly, this was a tough one. My first playthrough of this game nearly had me smashing my keyboard in half in a drunken rage trying to kill this fucker, and I can't even begin to imagine trying to beat this with a Dreamcast controller. But you know what? Once you finally do it, once this bastard finally goes down, it doesn't really matter because you're hit with the realization that you just spent blood, sweat, and tears over Omikron the Nomad Soul. So our protagonist walks through a portal into the government leader's apartment, and he's just dead. I guess the revolution happened off screen while you were off killing Astaroth. No idea if there was any direct correlation between these two events, of course. Ooh, and look, it's all our favorite characters lining up for our Wizard of Oz ending. Guy I didn't talk about because he wasn't terribly important. Guy that disappeared from the game 2 hours ago and I didn't bother mentioning because who cares? David Bowie, the only reason I bothered to play this game. Girl we just met an hour ago. She's a very important character, guys. Hey, lady, I hope you're not mad about me killing Photo.
Perhaps, in another time, another place, we could have loved each other and lived happily together. Fate has decided otherwise. I'll never forget you, Nomad Soul.
You know what? From the bottom of my heart, fuck you, game. I've talked about a lot of stupid, absolutely moronic shit in this video. There's a whole lot of other stupid minutiae I could have gone into as well that I didn't want to bother with for the sake of keeping this video coherent. But do you want to know what the dumbest, most idiotic thing you're going to hear from me this video is? I don't want to admit it, but it seems I like Omikron. I was frantic to see it as an enemy because I didn't want to accept the fact. I've actually played this game 3 times for the sake of this video. That's more times than I've played some games I love, and you know what? I'd play it again. Maybe like isn't appropriate, that just might be my brain trying to make sense of my feelings towards this mind-boggling shit show of a video game. I guess obsession and fascination can kind of be considered a form of liking something. Maybe the knowledge that something this comically stupid actually exists just broke me, like staring at a painting of dogs playing poker. I don't know, if this is one of my older videos I'd try to tie all this insanity into some greater point, because that's what you're expected to do with your big fancy YouTube review / video essay. I don't really have a larger point to make here. I just wanted to get this shit off my chest in hopes that the stupid I witness whenever I close my eyes will finally dissipate. So yeah, go eat shit, dickhead.